We're going to be doing Psalm 142. So Shavua Tov to everybody. 142, which is not, it's a little bit different from my normal list of Psalms. It's not one of the famous Psalms from liturgy. It's not part of our regular liturgy. However, it's listed by a number, especially of Hasidic, but by a number of authorities as a psalm to recite when in difficulty. So it has a certain cachet because of that. And as we go through the psalm, you'll see why it's one of those psalms which is suggested that a person recite when in a difficult situation. You'll see why. But one of the other things that makes it nice for that situation is it covers a lot of ideas of Psalms in general, about being in trouble and turning to Hashem, as we're going to see. But one of the things that makes it so powerful is the fact that it's short. I mean, it gets to the point very, very quickly, and it begins in a relatively powerful way. So let's get right to it. Maskil LeDavid. Someone's telling me that my voice and picture are choppy. Let's wait a little bit more. If we continue to have a problem, maybe I'll try to switch to my home internet. But usually the bandwidth is better on my phone as a hotspot. Okay, at the moment. Okay, let's hope let's. Okay. Maskil David b'hiot b'ma'arat tefillah. So we sort of have two openings, two introductions to our psalm. One is it's a maskil. We'll talk about that in a second. The second is that it's a tefillah, and it really is a tefillah. It's a tefillah that contains something that is called a maskil. Now, what does it mean, maskil? Now, most of the translations in front of me, and I've got 4 right now, most of the translations in front of me chicken out, and they translate maskil as M-A-S-K-I-L. How cowardly of them. A maskil is a poem that enlightens. This particular poem has a true aha moment in it, as we'll see hopefully just in a few minutes. The first poem of Psalms, the first psalm that uses the expression maskil is Psalm Lamed Bet 32, LeDavid maskil. And people say that the reason that David HaMelech used that expression at the beginning of that poem is because about 2/3 of the way through that poem, he begins a pasuk. So it's Psalm 32, verse 8, Askilcha v'orcha b'derech zo. I will instruct you and show you the light as you should go. So in other words, David, in the poem itself, when he says, I will enlighten you, I will give you seichel, I will give you the knowledge and the understanding needed in this circumstance. So in our poem, back to 142, which is what we're really focusing on, of course, is this Maskil David that David HaMelech is going to teach us I like the expression, aha moment. He's got this revelation in the poem. And the revelation takes place b'hioto b'ma'ara, while he was in the cave. Now David HaMelech was in caves twice. So there's another poem where he mentions in 52, where he mentions being in the cave. So a lot of people believe that psalm is talking about when he was in the cave in Adullam. For those who know some Israeli geography, Adulam is a beautiful rolling hills area in the Shvela between the Judean mountains and the coastal plain. It's very, very bucolic there. It's right near Park Britannia, along Route 38, just south of Beit Shemesh. It's very, very beautiful around there. And there is a tradition which cave he was in. And I don't know if it's the right cave because there are many, many caves in that neighborhood, in that area. But the second time he was in the cave, which is apparently this time, is a perhaps more famous incident at Ein Gedi. So let me quickly read to you the few verses from Shmuel Aleph, 1 Samuel, chapter 24, where David Melech talks about being in this cave in Ein Gedi. Ein Gedi, of course, that famous oasis in the Judean desert, right near the Dead Sea. Now, I'm an amateur tour guide. I used to lead the tours for my yeshiva years ago. So I have to mention where most people go and call it Ein Gedi is not Ein Gedi. Where most people go to the waterfall is really Nachal David, and it's very beautiful. And they call the nature reserve there Ein Gedi, but the true Ein Gedi spring is way up on the hillside, and you can see it from down below. Very few people climb up the hill to go see the actual Mayan, which is Ein Gedi, and it's surrounded by bulrushes. It's very, very nice. When I was younger, I hiked up there a number of times. It's a relatively difficult climb. And at the top of the hill, or towards the top of the hill, where this Mayan comes out, there are a number of caves. So we assume that the cave was one of those up there. But here's the story. David went from there and stayed in the wilderness of Ein Gedi. It's called Ein Gedi because there are a tremendous number of small mountain goats and some domesticated goats, but a lot of ibex in the area. When Saul returned from pursuing the Philistines, he was told that David was in the Midbar, the wilderness of En Gedi. So Saul took 3,000 picked men from all Israel and went in search of David and his men. That's a lot of men. Let me go back to telling the story that King David is in the cave at En Gedi, and there was a cave. And Saul went in the cave to relieve himself. Now David and his men were sitting in the back of the cave. David's men said to him, "This is the day of which the Lord said to you, I will deliver your enemy into your hands. You can do with him as you please." So David HaMelech had the opportunity to kill Shaul at that moment, and he didn't. Instead, he just stealthily cut off the corner of Saul's cloak. And then says to Shaul that he has, done this to Shaul. Okay, so that's our background of the cave. So the cave, though, according to all the Meforshim, the cave is just like Plato. A few centuries later, the cave is a metaphor. And it is the situation, the story of David HaMelech hiding in the cave, but the cave is also a metaphor for being contained, perhaps imprisoned. Some Meforshim say that the cave is a metaphor. The cave is a metaphor for galut, for being in the diaspora, in exile. But in any case, David HaMelech is going to both be talking about his own experience, but he's also going to be talking about anyone who is in this situation that they feel that they are imprisoned. And that term imprisonment, we will return to that at the end of the poem. So here we go. So now the poem, although it's a maskil that was based upon an insight that David HaMelech got in the cave, it's also a tefillah. And the tefillah begins in verse 2. Koli el Hashem ezak, Koli el Hashem et Hanan. My voice, I za'ak, I shout, I cry out to Hashem. Za'aka and tza'aka, they're both similar words, mean to cry out. A za'ak is greater than a tza'ak, but they both mean to cry out. In modern Hebrew, of course, a azaka is a siren, meaning here's trouble. So I'm crying out. I am shouting in a cry to Hashem, but it's in the future tense. Both of the terms, and my voice to Hashem, et Hanan, I beg, I entreat, I supplicate. This is, of course, the term from yesterday's Parsha, the et Hanan. Moshe Rabbeinu begged God. Et Hanan means, a tchina means to ask for something that you know you don't deserve. So it's a cry and a request, which is asking for mercy, asking for chen, which is grace, which is favor, something that he doesn't deserve. But if you notice in the future tense, so a lot of Meforshim say that David HaMelech in the cave wasn't davening. He was saying, when I get the opportunity, when Shaul isn't outside the cave with all of his men, and when it's not dangerous, at that point I'm going to cry out. Right now, I'm going to keep it inside. That's why a lot of Meforshim say it's in the present tense. Then it goes on and says, Eshpoch lefanav sichi, I will pour out. Shafach is literally to pour, like pour water, but eshpoch, I'm going to pour out sichi, everything that's on my mind, all that I want to talk about. Sicha is a speech, so I'm going to pour out all those things that I have to say. Sarati lefanav agid, and then I'm going to tell him what's bothering me. Now, this pasuk has been taken by the Gemara in Avodah Zarah and has become the model for Shmona Esrei. What I mean by that is that before we go to the middle section of Shmona Esrei and list our sarot, our troubles, our needs, our concerns, we first, Eshpoch lefanav sichi, we make a speech about the greatness of Hashem. And there's a machloket in the Gemara that the men of the great assembly, according to the Gemara, I don't know if this is historically accurate, but according to the Gemara, there was an argument amongst the men of the great assembly, Anshe Knesset Gedola, how should we write Shemona Esrei? Should we start off with, well, I need food, and I need water, and I need sustenance, and I need protection? Or should you begin by first telling HaKadosh Baruch Hu how much faith and how much love and how much you appreciate HaKadosh Baruch Hu? So that's what we do. We follow that second opinion. And according to the Gemara, the proof that opinion is before you ask for stuff from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, first you should praise HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is based on this Pasuk Gimel. So we've got two psukim that are describing David HaMelech's approach to talking to Hashem. He hasn't, I hate to say it this way, he hasn't said anything yet. Everything up until now is introduction. Now in verse 4, he gets down to the nitty-gritty of what the problem is. And that's what by the way, that's the way it's supposed to be. By the way, we do the same thing when we're talking to people. It's rare that if I want to borrow money from somebody, I rush up to them and I say, could you lend me 100? We first exchange pleasantries and we talk. And the same thing, lahavdil, is true in our tefillah. We have to convince ourselves and work up to talking about the issue. Here's the issue in Pasuk Daled. Behitatef alai ruchi. The language is a little bit unusual. Behitatef normally means to enwrap. Here it seems to be talking about the spirit upon me or within me is hitatef, is more like hitalev. It is, and we have this in the hitatef, is like faint within me. My spirit, I feel my spirit ebbing away. Va'ata yadata nitivati. You know my path. I feel faint. I feel difficulty really getting myself going. But you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you understand where I'm headed. Ba'orech zu ahalech. I am like ahalech. It should be elech. Ahalech is like a more intensive. It's like I have to walk. I have to in the future walk on this path. Tamnu pachli. But there is a hidden snare, trap, booby trap, if you will, on that path. I know I've got to take this particular route. I'm stuck. My options are very narrow. Remember, you're in a cave which only has one exit. I know the route I have to take, and you know it too, Hashem. And that path outside of 3,000 soldiers of Shaul who are out to get me. So it's like I'm now describing the nature of my situation. But we have to generalize that situation. David HaMelech is talking about being trapped in the cave. Our lives also trap us in many ways. And we see that the path in front of us is really full of IEDs, right? There are all sorts of mokshim, all sorts of landmines, and all sorts of problems, all sorts of traps are out there. So that's the beginning of the poem. That's the first half of the poem, where David HaMelech is describing, first of all, the fact that he's davening, and the second, that his situation is dire. Now comes the critical verse in our psalm. Verse 5 is the only verse in the psalm where David HaMelech is talking about himself. The other ones, he says, I tell you that the verbs, I apologize, I should have been more careful. I always said it, the verbs in the rest of the poem are for Hashem. In this one pasuk, which is the turning point of our poem and of the aha moment of David HaMelech, is verse Hey. Habit yamin ure'eh. Look to the left. Excuse me. Look to the right. Oh my God, I'm a lefty. I said that. That was like a Freudian slip. Look to my right and see. Ein li makir. There's no one there that recognizes me. Avad manos mimeni. I have no means of escape. I can't get out of it. Ein doresh l'nafshi. No one is going to seek help for me. No one is going to look out for me. Doresh means literally to search. A drasha is an attempt to search out an idea. Doresh, no one is going to seek my betterment. I'm all alone. Now, what is David HaMelech saying in this poem? The Midrash brought down by the Alshich is fascinating. He says, I look to my right and I don't see anybody. According to the Alshich, it's talking about Bet Din Shamala, the heavenly court. And in the heavenly court, there are angels, prosecuting and defense angels that are arrayed. The prosecuting angels are on the left and the defense angels are on the right. I look towards the right and I don't see anybody. My defense team is gone. There seems to be nobody on my side. So that is the opinion of the Alshich, which is a very beautiful midrashic approach, but it's not pshat. For pshat, I want to quote from Elchanan Samet. Elchanan Samet is a Rebbe at Yeshivat Har Etzion who has some beautiful essays on Psalms. And I just want to read two sentences from his essay on this particular Psalm. In stanza 5, in verse 5, it becomes clear to the psalmist himself, David HaMelech, as well as to us, his readers, that it is the petitioner's very turning to God in prayer that is changing his mental state. His prayer itself is improving his situation, releasing him from his distressful loneliness in a world in which he is being persecuted by the enemy and where no man is ready to help him. Stanza 5, verse 5, therefore, opens with human action. I cried, I said. It's the rest of the poem that relies on the actions of God. Here is the aha moment. The aha moment has two, well, really three, but I only want to concern myself with two parts. The aha moment is I'm davening to Hashem, and davening to Hashem gives me a sense of I'm not alone. People ask me sometimes if reciting Psalms or prayer helps. If God forbid somebody's sick or somebody's in trouble, and one of the questions when I was teaching and a rabbi in America, people often said, do prayers work? And I always said yes, even though I don't necessarily believe that you get what you ask for. I don't see davening and prayer recitation of Psalms as like a game of fish, oh, I got what I wanted. I don't think that's how it works. I think it works in the sense of what David HaMelech is doing here. He felt all alone. He was all alone. When you start to talk and dive into HaKadosh Baruch Hu, all of a sudden, you don't feel alone. That doesn't mean the problem has gone away. And I'm not going to say that HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't help us with the problem at some, in the fullness of time. But just the act of pouring out your soul to HaKadosh Baruch Hu is already quite often a relief. It's quite often remarkable that you sit down to daven and when you have a certain problem, and when you finish davening, the problem hasn't gone away, but you definitely feel in a better place. That, I believe strongly, and so does Rabbi Samit, and so does the Alshich, but in a different way, that's the aha moment of the Psalm. Psalms work, but they work primarily on me. They don't necessarily work on the bad guy or on the disease. But you know what? When I'm in a better place, I'm in a much better situation for solving the problem. My mental state affects how well I can fight infection, how well I'm able to really come to battle with disease. Whatever it is, when I'm in a good mental place, good spiritual place, at that moment, I'm better able to deal with whatever problems are coming my way. And I think that's the aha moment. It's up to me and my relationship with Hashem to get out of this, because there is nobody else around. I just want to say one more thing about the structure of the verse. It says, Habit Yamin. So I gave the Alshich's Midrashic interpretation, but quite often you look for help on your right-hand side. Now, I find this a little disappointing because I'm a lefty, but it's true that right has that I see Simon too, has that connotation. However, many Meforshim said that it's just shorthand. It really means I look to my right and I look to my left. And it just mentioned to the right. I'm not sure of what David HaMelech himself had in mind, but I really think that he's talking, he uses only one direction because there's only one way out of the cave. And he's really afraid what's going to confront him when he gets out there. In the actual story, by the time he leaves the cave, Shaul HaMelech is on another mountaintop. If you ever go to Ein Gedi, you can see there are many peaks which are separated by deep valleys. So even though from one peak to another may seem relatively close, getting there isn't so easy. So David HaMelech comes out from the cave and he sees Shaul on another peak, and he yells to him. And at that point, he says, "Look, I could have killed you," and whatever. And Shaul momentarily feels some chemla, some compassion for David HaMelech. But they think our verse is only mentioning one direction because his options have been narrowed down, and he really doesn't have that many ways. He only has one way out of his particular situation. And of course, whenever your options are narrowed, that's when you're in trouble, and that's why our word for trouble is sarot, narrow. I don't have many options. I am constricted in what I can possibly do. Okay, the next two verses are a continuation, basically, of verse 4, where he begins to describe his situation. But now he is more confident in his approach to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And he's saying now that he's not talking about going to do it. He's now really talking to Hashem. He feels the confidence that at this moment he can really talk to Hashem. A prayer is often a frustrating experience. And I'm sure many of you know that many times when you daven, you went through the motions and you didn't necessarily feel like it was an act of communication. And when it was over, it's like, please forgive me, this is embarrassing. There are times when I finish davening, and especially chakras, because I'm quite often tired, and I say, gee, did I say this? I can't remember having recited something, and it's like embarrassing. And you don't come away with that tremendous, the sense, the uplift that you should. But there are other times when you've really focused and you come away from the tefillah, mamish feeling, it was, lahavdil. It's like taking a shower. Sometimes you really feel, verschwitzt and all that. You take a shower and wow, you feel great. Sometimes davening, you really focused and you really said it, and you had this sense that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was on the other end of the line. And it was really, it was really like a wonderful experience. And David HaMelech, in verses Vav and Zion, I believe is showing us that kind of focus, that it's like, I'm into it. I'm really talking to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I'm really spilling my kishkas to Hashem. I think that's what's going on here in Vav and Zion. Za'akti elecha, it's in the past tense, but it's in the past tense perfect, past tense continuing into the present. I continually cry out to you, Hashem, Amarti, Atam Machsi, you are my cover, my refuge, you are my protection. Chelki be'eretz hayim, you are my portion in the world of the living. Now, there's a question about what this phrase means. Now, I think he means this olam hazeh. There are meforshim, and we're going to see this when we get to the last verse. There are more mystical meforshim that talk about the fact that David HaMelech is talking about olam haba. But I don't think that's pshat. I will return to that idea when we get to verse 8 in about 5 minutes. But let's keep with the pshat, which I think is, you are my portion in this world of the living. In other words, you're it. There's nobody else. I don't have any other protectors. I don't have any other troops at my disposal that I can trust. You're it, God. You are my portion in this world. But that feels good. Zion, Hakshiva, pay attention. Hakshiva is not just listen. The translation in front of me is listen. Listen. I'm disappointed. Pay attention. Sorry, what did you have? Attend. That's a little bit better. Attend to me. Hakshiv. In modern Hebrew, this is one of those words in the army that you like to forget. That's what the drill sergeant yells out at you. Akshay, attention. Everybody stands straight and tall at that moment, okay, as best you can. But akshiva, pay close attention, listen carefully. El rinati, listen to my, rina means musical cry. It doesn't have, we usually think of it as happy, it doesn't have to be happy, but it means a cry which has like a meter and music to it. Listen to my cry. Ki daloti ma'od, for I am very, now my translation in front of me says low. Dali is a bucket. Okay, dali gets lowered into the well, right? So I have been drawn low. Again, for I have sunk, I like this actually, this is an altar. I have sunk very low. Hatsileni mirofai. I mean, that's it. That's the bottom line. Save me, but this is save me. This is not Hoshea. This is not spiritually save me. This is Hatzilu. This is save me physically. This is not salvation. This is an emergency, an emergency operation of like Hatzalah, save me from those who pursue me, who chase me. Ki amsu'u many, because they are much more powerful. Chazak v'amatz. They are much more powerful than me. But when you say amatz rather than chazak, okay? No, he's not just saying they're stronger than me. They are emsu. They are amatz v'menu. Amatz is like an intensification of being stronger. When you say chazak, be strong, va'amatz, and continue to get strong. That it's the idea of increase. So that imsu, they're not just stronger than me, they are continually growing stronger than me. The armies of Shaul are growing. The army around David HaMelech, which started with 400 men, turned into 200 men. He's weakening while Shaul was strengthening. Now later, as we know, the roles are reversed, but at this moment, he's far, far, far outnumbered. Okay, so Vav and Zion are the actual tefillah. Everything else is like window dressing. But Vav and Zion is the actual tefillah of David HaMelech. But the tefillah is only so powerful because it takes place after the maskil moment, the aha moment there in verse 5. And that brings us to the ultimate pasuk. Hotzia mimazger nafshi. Free me. Take me out from the prison of my nefesh, of my soul. My soul, nefesh, my life force. I don't want to say soul, I'm going to continue to use life force. My life force is in Seger. If you remember, Pesach night, the Seder night, and they didn't let people go out. The Hebrew term for that was Seger. Now I remember living in Efrat during the Intifada, and then the word Seger was the term used for Arab villages. That they would say there's a Seger on Shema'ah on the village, whatever, El Quds, whatever, El Chadera, whatever village it was that they would, El Quds is Jerusalem, there was never Seger in Jerusalem, but they would say Seger. And so take me out of this enclosure. I'm entrapped. Take me out of this. So literally, that means the cave. But remember, the cave is also a metaphor. What's it a metaphor for? Well, that's a machloket between two commentators that we'll see in just a minute. Lahodot et shemecha. When I get out of this trap, what am I going to do? What's the purpose of getting out of this? To praise Hashem. When I'm out of here, I'm just going to bring a korban todah. I'm going to say Hallel. I'm going to have a Sudat Hodayah. The purpose of getting out of here is so that I can give thanks and recognition to your name. Be Yachtiru Tzadikim. And at that moment, when I'm praising you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's not about victory. It's not about wealth. It's not about riches. It's not about covet. That moment, the tzaddikim are going to envelop me. They're going to encircle me. But the word for encircle also can mean keter, crown me. But it means I'm going to be surrounded and honored by the tzaddikim. I want to be in that number, okay? When the saints come marching in. That's exactly what David HaMelech is saying. I want to be part of that picture. Yachtiru tzaddikim. It's literally that line from the, that New Orleans, jazz song, okay? Ki tigmal alai. For you have done for me whatever was needed. Gemul means to act, because you have acted on my behalf. Now, my one translation, because of your kind dealings with me, that's Gemilas Chesed. This Koren translation is putting it together with Gemilas Chesed. Gemil just means the act. Will draw around me when you requite me. Oh, no, forget that. I don't even know what that means, requite. But anyways, Gemil means when you are going to act on my behalf. So the bottom line is, get me out of here. When I'm out of here, I'm going to use that newfound freedom to praise you. The praising you is going to bring me into the circle of tzaddikim, and that's all based upon your behaving on, you acting on my behalf. That's the end of the poem, and it's just a beautiful ending. What is he talking about? So on the pshat level, what he's talking about is getting him out of the cave, getting him out of his imprisonment, his physical imprisonment. And when that happens, I'm going to have this great opportunity. The Alshich writing in around 1590, with Moshe Alshich writing in Sfat, looks at this verse and says it's talking about a mystical idea. And he says, just one line from Hine, what he's talking about, Hine bebet din shomala, yesh miminim melamdim zchut, no, that's the wrong one, okay, ama halo mati ki adayin en izman nesiyato le'eretz hachayim, ki dalanim b'zchuyot, ad she'ashir mehem, al kein ani omer hotzi, mimizgan nafshi, ata ba'atzmecha, shotziani b'neshika mi gufi. You're going to give me the kiss of, well, we say the kiss of death, but he means the kiss of life. He means, according to the Alshich, David HaMelech is not talking about Olam Hazeh, he's talking about Olam Haba. And when he's in this circle of tzaddikim, that is when he gets together with the righteous in Olam Haba. And it's that's a very Kabbalistic view of this life, that this life is a trap for my soul. My soul doesn't want to be here. My soul wants to be on high. And that's the Kabbalistic approach of the Alshich. The Balatanya, on the other hand, writing 200 years later, the first Lubavitcher Rebbe, he looks at this verse and he says the following. When I use my seichel, what do I really think about? The thing I really desire, that really, the more I use my seichel and think about, remember it's a maskil, the more I use my seichel, what I really want out of life, and he's talking about this world, gam befi v'kam everav, both with my mouth and with my physical body, my limbs, lasot b'torah u'mitzvot, v'ledavka b'hem b'Hashem mamash. Because what I really want is to get my physical body in this world out of the restraints of this world. I don't want to spend my efforts on worldly endeavors. I want to spend my efforts in this world on learning Torah, on doing mitzvot. Those activities free me from the imprisonment that my spirituality feels in this world. So according to the Balatanya, the cave, and let's do this in order. According to Pshat, the cave is a trap of Shaul HaMelech. Okay, according to the Alshich, the cave is being stuck in this life. According to the Balatanya, the cave is when the world is too much with me and I don't spend enough time expanding my soul and working on my spiritual development. And at the end of the poem, David HaMelech is stressing, I want to be with the tzaddikim. I want to be involved in spiritual activity. I've had enough of this fighting and of this physical struggles. I want to spend as much time as I can involved with spiritual things. And I think that's part of what David HaMelech is saying. Yes, the Pshat is definitely correct. It's talking about a physical difficulty. But when he says, I want to be encircled and crowned by tzaddikim, he really means I would like to be in another place in this world. And that other place is spiritual, is full of mitzvot and Torah. And that's where I want to be, not in this God-forsaken cave or prison or imprisoned by the physical accoutrement around me. And then he ends, the Rebbe does, because Dioraita v'kudsha bruchu kulachan, because my soul, the Torah, and Hashem are one thing. And I want to crown my life with Torah and mitzvot, with spirituality, and not have to spend all of my life with, and have not been all of my life in all of these physical problems. Someone just sent me a note asking why I'm not in Torah Tidbits. Okay, that's very kind of you to say that in the note, but you have to write to the editor of Torah Tidbits about that. I'm sorry, it's out of my hands. I write to them every week, and you can find my articles on the online version of it. Okay, and that's all. But thank you for asking. But you can find it in the online version of Torah Tidbits. Let me get back to the poem. The poem starts off in tremendous imprisonment in the sense of minametza karatika, and it ends in this tremendous sense of, I do have space and room to do what I really want to do. And what I really want to do is be together with the tzaddikim, doing righteousness and good things in this world. And I really hope that, you know, we're in our own me'ara right now. We are in a cave. That cave is not a physical cave. It's an invisible cave, and it's called coronavirus. And we, you know, right now it's like almost everything we think about is what am I going to do, and how am I going to deal with the present situation I find myself in. But I hope, and Baruch Hashem, we have these things like Zoom, and we have the garden minyanim and the Zoom minyanim and shiurim and other things. I hope that we can, even though we're in this cave and each one of us in their own personal cocoon, a little bit hiding from the world and from reality and from the virus, I hope that we'll listen to David HaMelech and have that aha moment, which is, I can always turn to Hashem, and I will find solace, and I will find fulfillment in that effort. And Bezrat Hashem, so will we. Everyone should have a wonderful week, and everyone should stay safe, and everyone should stay healthy. And thank you very, very much for joining me this morning. Shavua Tov.